So much, Felicia. Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I just realized I had strung my banner backwards, and I was trying to get it restrung together for you guys so you could see this fun project. This is one of the 5 denim projects that are great for beginners. It simply takes the leg of old denim jeans, and we can cut out these little banner flags and then apply iron-on vinyl. Now, this vinyl, I know it looks white right now, but I actually use a UV vinyl. So when this fun little Hello Summer banner would go outside, the white that you see on the design would turn to yellow and really making it a fun design. So let me just pull that through, and then you guys, I'll hold that up for you to see. I will show you how easy it is to cut these triangles out of your pants, your old denim jeans. And it really doesn't matter if you have just a scrap of your denim jean that you're using, or if you want to use an entire piece. So I had, working on all my different projects, I had so many different denim styles that were left over. I thought this would be such a fun project to take some of the little pieces and just make different banners. So I have Hello Summer. My hello is still backwards, but we have Hello Summer in a fun little banner that you can hang up. So that is one of the projects that is a really easy project for a beginner. Another really easy project for a beginner is to take some leftover denim. Again, this is just a scrap of denim from your main project, and make a little keychain. All you have to do is stitch it onto the webbing, add a little hardware onto your webbing, and then you have a nice little keychain. You could even, if you were into hand embroidery or using your vinyl, to put that design right onto your design right there. Very fun, very easy project. So another easy project that does require just a little bit of sewing, but not very much, are these fun little placemats that you can make. So I actually just decided to heat glue gun the pocket onto these cork placemats, and then use a fun little bandana as the napkin. And the pocket then can hold the silverware or little snacks if you have condiments. Let's say you're doing like a barbecue type of dinner and you have little ketchup packets or mustard packets you want to put in people's placemat settings, then you can just put those in the pocket as well. So this was a really fun and easy project to create. I did cut off the waistband and move that sideways, so I had the little loop there for my bandana to go into. And I can go over these a little bit closer with my overhead camera when we get there if you want to see that. Now, as you get sewing and you get more confident, maybe you want to make some bags. So you could use your leg of your jean. Now on this one, this was like the fanciest one I did for this class. On the seam, I did some embroidery up the side, and then just did a lined bag with a simple zipper and a box on the bottom, which you guys are going to learn how to do the box today. If you want to go a little easier, you don't have to do the boxing and just add your zipper and your lining onto that. I really thought using the seams of the jeans could really give your little zipper pouches some design. So depending on where you wanted that seam to go, you could incorporate that into your design. I love that. And then there's like a little middle zipper pocket there, and then this little guy here had the seam going across. So either way, you could do your seam up and down or across, and then add a little bit of lining into your zip pouch. So that is the third project. And kind of along those same lines, have you ever made a mug rug? Mug rugs are so easy. So I didn't love how this design came out. This is one of my first ones for this. and I just made a mug rug. Literally, all you have to do is overlap your fabric on the back side and cut out your rectangle on the front side, sew around it, and then it turns itself inside out right through this pocket. So it's super easy to do. I think this is a great beginner project. If you have your little scraps of denim left over, you can kind of quilt it together and make a fun overall pattern of your for your mug rugs. And then something as you get a little bit more advanced with your projects is to take over the leftover waistband with that where you cut off your legs to make our project today or make the banner. You could take the top, give it a lining. I even added a pocket onto the inside of this and sew up the bottom. So you're just going to seam the bottom. And now I have a little tote bag that I can either put a strap on it or even put it just around a belt and wear it around my waist, however you want to do it. So those are some really fun projects that you can do. Our project today, though, is going to start off with cutting the leg of your pants off and making a little pouch, if you will. So you can line it if you want to. You do not have to do the lining. It is so easy to make these, and depending on how high up the leg you cut, will give you varying sizes of your pockets. So these are from a women's size jean, and I cut up about 11 inches to make this design here. If you need bigger little pouches for trucks, for Legos, anything like that, you can do that. And then I thought it would be fun to use your iron-on and mark what it goes in here. So if you're trying to organize a student's desk, you could put pens, pencils, colored markers, all into different pouches on their desk and keep everything organized. You can even take that loop from the waistband and attach it to the back so you can hang that on a wall. All right, so I bet everybody is super excited to get started making this. So why don't you grab your jeans, grab your scissors and your tape measure or your ruler, and we'll get started cutting. If we could, let me switch over and I'll go to my overhead camera for you guys. Oh, thank you, Felicia. She's fast. We'll also need, you can use some, you can either use these little clips like this. Let me get that focused for us. We can use little clips like these, or you can use your straight pins. You will want to have your jeans, you can use scissors. I have a couple different pairs of scissors I use depending on what I'm cutting out. So you don't need to have more than one really. Have your scissors and just a straight ruler. I do love to work on this type of mat here because it gives me the grids. But if you don't have a mat like that, don't worry, we'll be fine. Okay, so let's grab a first pair of jeans here. Now these are fun because the hem is frayed here, but take note, excuse me, take note on your jeans, the stretch. So this pair of jeans is really going to give me a lot of stretch. This one gives me stretch, but not as much. I found when I was working with the men's jeans that I had, they do not have as much stretch and give. So this is a pair of men's jeans, which didn't have much stretch and give to it. So just take note of that. I did find for this project, it's easier to do with jeans that have less stretch. But if you have jeans that have a lot of stretch in it, one thing I wanted to suggest that you could do is grab some, this is interfacing, and it's the Pellon number 931 TD. It's a lightweight interfacing that has a little bit of adhesive on one side and just the regular interfacing on the other side. You don't need very much of this, but what you can do is add it to your, more so down here where we're going to make the bottom so that as you sew, it doesn't stretch. If you're a beginner, you may want to have that little bit of reassurance that your seam's not going to stretch on you. if you've been sewing for a while, just you'll know to not stretch your top fabric. So I've gone ahead and cut my my pant leg down 11 inches. So you can make it however, whatever size you would like to make your pocket. If you want a square pocket, just square up that bottom and then cut across that way, and that will give you a squared bottom. So go ahead, everyone, make your first cut on your jeans. And I'm going to show you the Pellon. I'll go ahead and do the Pellon interfacing on my pair of jeans here. So anybody, if you want to do that for a future design, you can kind of see the difference of having one with the interfacing, the stabilizer, and without. And it really doesn't matter, one way or the other how you do it. So, okay, so we've got so you've got your pant cut out. And like I mentioned, mine was, I believe it was 11 inches. Maybe it's a little bit shorter. I'm sorry, mine is 9.5 inches tall, and the width is 5 3/4 of an inch. Now, something to take into consideration on this project. Some of you may have bell-bottom pants, so they may be a little bit wider at the bottom, or you may have skinny jeans, so this part may be a little bit more narrow. Measure from the widest part of your pant, because when we get into stitching it together, like this one, I kind of made, this is the sister leg to this one. And I sort of wanted it to be a little bit smaller to fit, like make it a can koozie. I thought that would be really cute. So that would be fun, but you can also roll it down a bit if you needed to, a little bit more. Roll it down a little bit more like that far down, and then I can stick a can or bottle right into that. Okay, but your lining piece, we're not going to attach our lining today unless you want to, and you can do that at the last step. Our lining piece is just going to fit inside your pant leg. So if your pants happen to be bell-bottomed, they'll be a little bit wider down at the bottom. So I would say we're going to do your lining piece based on the widest part of your pant. And then if it has a little bit of extra fabric inside, then that's okay. Don't worry about that. Okay, so you're going to want to go ahead and figure out, kind of get an idea of how you want your pocket to lay. I'm going to put my seam, I'm not going to match my seams together. I'm going to go ahead and kind of let them be a little bit wider, narrow, wider, and narrow. And the reason I'm doing that is then you don't have to be so exact down the line. And I'm going to go ahead, I think I want to make this about 2 inches smaller than the other one. So let me just go ahead and trim off about 1.5 inches at the top, 1 3/4 inches. So I'm just going to use my rotary cutter here, and I'll cut across. Okay. So we'll just give that a nice trim cut there. And I saved every single piece of my denim as I was cutting and making projects. Okay, so now my piece is 6 inches wide, and it is 8 inches tall. So what we're going to do is cut our lining piece of fabric. So our liner piece will be 12 inches by 8 inches, but we need to add a seam allowance to our lining piece. So grab your lining fabric if you're using a lining fabric, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to line up my selvage edges here and my raw edges. Looks like I cut something already over this piece. So we're just going to line that up and make sure you have a nice clean edge there. And you can just take your bottom piece, and we're going to add about a 1/2 inch all the way around our lining piece. And then we're going to add about 2 inches on the top. The reason I did the 2 inches a little extra on the top is we're going to fold it down and create a nice closed seam on the top. And then we want it to be a little bit bigger so that when we roll it down, it's there. Okay. I cut my leg straight across. So it's still a tube. Winnie, I still have my leg is still a tube. So I just cut it straight across on my jeans. You just cut right across the bottom there, however high up you want to go. And then we're going to create our lining pattern. So just go ahead and line your material up with your lining material, and we're going to add a 1/2 inch onto each side, the bottom, and then 2 inches on the top. So if we're going to cut it, you can go ahead and use your whatever kind of pen you have, and I'm just going to draw my line here. So I'm going to draw a 1/2 inch extra on each side. We'll add 2 inches on the top. And that's because we're going to roll iron that down, and we are going to press and sew the top, and then add just about a 1/2 inch onto the bottom. And this piece is going to go on the inside, so you don't have to be exactly. What you want to make sure, though, is that when we sew it on the sides to make our tube for our lining, it's going to fit back into the pants. So you don't want to get it too big or too small to fit in there. Just right, like Goldilocks. Okay, so then go ahead and grab your scissors or your rotary trimmer and cut that out. So I've got 2 layers, right sides facing. And I've added 2 inches onto the top of my fabric, and I've added a 1/2 inch all the way around. Now, 5/8 of an inch is your standard sewing seam allowance. I find a 1/2 inch is easy to work with. So you can, I mean, if you wanted to do a 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, a whole inch, it really doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable doing. Okay, so now we've got that cut out. You can put your lining fabric aside and go over, grab your iron. I'm going to start getting the seam pressed. Now, again, on this lining piece, on the top of it, we press it over and sew it. So I went ahead, I always think it's easier to give myself a line to follow, and I just do that with my iron. So keep your 2 lining pieces together, right sides facing. Okay, and I'll show you my trick on how I sew down. So all I'm going to do is come down a 1/2 inch, and you just can take your ruler and measure it and make sure you're right. And you've got plenty of room to eyeball it if you're more comfortable eyeballing it. But we're going to take this first side down about a 1/2 inch, come over with your iron and give that a nice little press there. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side of the lining. Just once you've got that first 1/2 inch fold, you fold it over and we can press right on there. Now, when we sew our sides, we're going to open this seam up, but then when we go to sew our top thinner, our top, when we go to sew this down, the sides will be sewn, but we'll have our marks. And this is just a way to make it a little bit easier on us. So once you've pressed that down, again, you can take your pant leg and make sure that you've got it enough, a little bit extra at the bottom and at the top. So that gives you a little extra to play with. Okay, so now, if you're having any troubles, just let us know. Let me know in the chat. I can slow down a little bit. I don't want to go too fast, but I also don't want to go too slow. Okay, so once we've got our top seam half folded and then another half folded, same on the other side, go ahead and grab your pins and pin the 4 sides together. Now, If you're more comfortable with more pins, please do put in as many pins as you feel comfortable with. The more I sewed, the fewer pins I used, just because I got comfortable with having being able to hold it together. But I think as a beginner, you will want to put in more pins just to kind of give you a little bit more confidence that nothing's wiggling on you. If you're more comfortable, you can use the little clips here and just clip your fabric together with the clips like that. Either way. I switch between the pins and the alligator and the little clips. You know, it's either way. As you're getting started with your, as a beginner, I usually wouldn't come, I'd come down about an inch here, pin as much as you need in the center, and then come about an inch to the end. So as you get more comfortable, you may end up having 8 pins right here. As you get more comfortable, you'll reduce the number of pins you put in your project, and that just comes with time. So do what you're comfortable with, and work from that. Okay. So for sewing this, what we're going to do is we're going to sew both of the side seams and across the bottom. You'll do a 1/2 inch on each side and a 1/2 inch on the bottom. So we're just going to sew all the way around. Now I'll sew to the end, clip my threads, turn it, sew across, turn it, and sew across. Normally, when you sew a box like this, you would kind of come down to about the 1/2 inch, pivot your fabric, and go across. But I'm just going to let my corners crisscross this time. Okay, so I've got my fold. You can see my folds up here, but my fabric is completely pinned all around with the right sides facing each other like a sandwich. You got the good stuff on the inside. And then we have those 2 pressed seams, 1/2 inch and an inch down. So let's go ahead on over to our machine. And I've got my machine is all threaded and ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead, and if you need to grab your ruler and see where, if you don't have the markings where your 1/2 inch mark is, just kind of put your ruler down and you'll see about how far out a 1/2 inch line is. My 1/2 inch line, it's a little difficult to see here, but my 1/2 inch line is right here. So if you are, again, if you're new to sewing and you find those lines difficult to follow, because it's hard to see, grab a piece of washi tape or a straight magnet, and you can put that on your sewing machine, and then you'll know, okay, that's my 1/2 inch line right there. So I'm going to go ahead and lift my presser foot, put my fabric down, and using that 1/2 inch guide, I'm just going to stitch a straight line down my seam. And as you go, so about an inch or so before my needle's going to hit where my pin is, I just remove that pin. Now, I have to be honest with you guys, I usually have my pins in my mouth when I sew. So we're just going to go right down to the very end of our seam. You'll lift your presser foot and trim your threads right here. And then again, using that 1/2 inch, we're going to sew across the bottom. As you're sewing, if you want to, you can hold your threads, your bobbin thread and your top thread in your hand, or you can sink your needle. Sometimes on some machines, your bobbin thread will tend to get caught up and kind of like on the back side of your fabric, you'll notice a little bird's nest. So holding those threads or sinking your needle as you start is really the best way to prevent those bird's nests from showing. So you can either just hold on to those 2 threads there, or we can slide those out of the way, put our fabric again underneath with that 1 inch, sink your needle. So I'm turning the crank here, sinking my needle, and then I'm going to go ahead and start. Okay, that's all we need to do. Now, you could do a back and forth at the front and the beginning of your stitching if that's what makes you comfortable. I don't always do that. Sometimes I do, so usually I don't. But if you've been taught that way to do that, then by all means, please do that. Once you have your fabric is sewn, we're going to trim off all of our loose threads here, and then we'll head back over to our overhead camera to do to press in our seam at the top here, and then we'll come back to the machine and sew this edge down. Okay, so let's go back over to my overhead camera, and I've got my little this is called the little camera, the little iron I have, Susan. This is the Cricut Easy Press, and it's called the Mini. And it is, I have to say, it's like so perfect because it is tiny. And I usually use, you know, when I sew, I use my iron, but I wanted to make it easier for you guys to see what I was pressing. So I grabbed my little iron, and it is good for these little projects. So I'm just going to press open my seam at the top on both sides here. And to answer your question, yes, it is available at Michael's. It's called the Cricut Easy Press Mini, and they have bunch, not so much with like this cute little handle in it, but they do have other sides of Easy Press things. Now we're just going to use that 1/2 inch seam that we pressed, and we're going to press down once. So we're going to just fold it down one time. Make sure your seam stays open on the side. Roll it down 1/2 inch, and then come back, and using that second press we did, go ahead and roll it down another 1/2 inch. Okay. There we go. Now I should have told you guys, I am a self-taught seamstress. So while I did, I got to take some sewing classes in college because I studied fashion design. Most of my sewing skills came from being a teenager and wanting to hang out as much as possible with my big sis. And she sewed, and she and I used to sit in the basement and we would sew. We would make our own clothes and we would sew. And that was sort of like how I was able to spend time with her. Okay, so I'm just going to press that top again and push this out. But a lot of times, you know, she had a mentor that would answer her questions, but a lot of times what we had to figure out was just like, I don't know, I think it goes like this. I don't know, I think it goes like that. So a lot of the way that we learned to sew was just through trial and error. So I am telling you guys that because while we have YouTube, and you could find a YouTube video for just about anything you want to make, just go for it, you know, like go, I think it'll go like this, and have yourself a nice seam ripper in case it doesn't go like that, and you can just take out that seam, but just don't be afraid to jump in there and give it a try. Okay, so I've got that is rolled down twice. I've pinned it, and I'm going to go ahead. We'll sew that onto there. So why don't we go back over to our sewing machine, and we can go ahead and sew that on there. You know, I'm going to just put these two spotlights together. If those are too small for you, let me know and I can just do one, but then that way we don't have to go back and forth.
Hey, Kensley, I'm actually just going to spotlight the sewing machine because some may be on their phones.
Okay, yep, I don't want it to be too small. All right, so again, we've got that 1/2 inch seam here, and I'm just going to kind of go in the middle and begin my sewing. And it doesn't have to be exact, guys. Just you want to kind of get it, you want to have like your straight edge and follow along that way. And by exact, I mean like if your fold down is a little bit more than 1/2 inch, that's okay. Or a little bit less than 1/2 inch, that's okay too. If you need to sink your needle so that you can adjust your fabric, if your sewing machine doesn't give you enough room to go around your arm, then you're just going to kind of adjust your fabric as you go. So you just kind of pick it up and bring it around and then sink your needle. You may get some wrinkles along the way. I think I may have just given myself a little wrinkle there. But nobody's gonna see it if I did. And if I wanted to, I would just use my seam ripper and smooth that out. And I think the 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 cool thing about doing the upcycling is this is something that will appeal to a younger generation. So if you have a teenager that you've been wanting to learn how to get into sewing, this is a great project. You can go to a thrift store, find some denim or cargo pants, you know, whatever, and then start projects. Now you'll notice here, I brought my thread up through the bottom and just trim that off as I go along. So good question about, somebody asked a question. Here's the question. Can you mention the required needle and thread for sewing on denim? Does the needle and thread need to be changed for sewing on denim versus the lining? So most denim nowadays will, and since we're not like sewing through, you know, the really thick layers of denim, like if you were making denim jeans. So they do make a needle that goes through denim. So it's a little bit of a sturdier needle, as well as your point is different. It's not as fine a point as like your everyday needle is. And there is thread that is like that thicker thread that does the seams. Since our fabric, our lining fabric is like just 100% cotton fabric. I'm using an everyday needle, and really the only part on our pant that we're going to be sewing is up here where it's very thin denim. Then I didn't change it out. But if you're sewing, you know, through multiple layers of denim, and even denim's a lot thinner now than it used to be. So I actually use my everyday needle on my sewing my denim. So you could go for a different, you could go for a different needle, a specific needle for denim if you wanted to, but you don't have to for what we're doing. If you're going to be stitching through all these layers of denim to make seams or something like that, then you would want to you might want to go for a thicker needle. And especially if you're using like old-fashioned denim. This elastic denim also causes a little bit of a problem because the elasticity, you want more of a ballpoint needle if you're working with fabric that has a stretch to it. So that's a great question. But for this project, because we weren't doing full-on denim seams and everything, I did just use my everyday needle. Okay, so once you've got that seam sewn in there, you just can take your liner and bring it into your pants and make sure that it's going to fit in the inside. If it's too small, then it's not gonna fill out nicely and it's gonna bunch up. If it's too big, you may have, like just in this circle part, you may have some extra fabric. If your denim has a little bit of give, you can pull the denim and fill that in. But since we're not attaching our denim to the lining piece, we're going to let those two be separate. Then that gives you the grace to kind of just roll it over. If you wanted to attach it to the top, this is a good time you could do that now. And what I did is as you can see, I have a little stitch there and I stitched it right into the seam. You could stitch it right into the seam there at that point if you wanted to, but you don't have to do that now. If you wanted to do that, you could do that at the very last step. So you can always go back and add that in if you wanted to. So now what we're going to do is do what's called boxing our corners. To box our corners, we're going to basically be creating this little box design on the bottom of our fabric. So here's the liner. So it has this little box design to it. like that. So you've got like this little box on the bottom. And the way we do that is we're going to notch in two rectangles, two squares on the bottom corners. So it's up to you how big you want to go. If you want to have a deeper, bigger bottom, you would give your notch, you would give your rectangle here, your square, a bigger square. So you can see here, this is about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. On this one, I think this one I made about 1.25 inches, an inch. So this one was a little bit smaller at 1 inch. So it's really up to you, but the bigger your square that you cut out, the bigger your bottom will be. So if you know, hey, I need to put some stuff in there that like race cars, and I want to have a bigger bottom, then you can go with like a really big square if you want to on the bottom. I kind of look at it and think about how wide my bottom is and how big I would want my square to be. Also, I take into consideration on my denim how big I would want my bottom to be, so I kind of can avoid the seams. So like if I were to have this pocket folded like this and I wanted to go 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches, then I would be fine. I would be totally clear of that seam. But if I want to go bigger and do a 2-inch by 2-inch square, then I'm kind of running into that seam there. So I might dial it back and say, okay, you know, 1.5 inches is plenty big for me. So I'll do 1.5 inches on my bottoms. So all we're going to do is you'll measure across 1.5 inches and up 1.5 inches and mark that. And then we're going to cut that off. So we're just going to go across 1.5 inches and up 1.5 inches. And I'll do the same thing on both sides, across and up. We're just going to go across 1.5 inches and down 1.5 inches. Double check this that I did that properly. Yep. Okay. Then all we have to do is cut out these two little squares. So we're just going to cut this out like this on each side. And this, if you've never boxed a corner before, you're going to be so proud of yourself. It's an easy sewing technique, but it's a crowd pleaser because it's really easy to do. But once you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing. It looks hard, but it's so easy. Go ahead and save your your squares that you cut out. We'll use those on our pant leg in a moment. Now, this is a good spot to go ahead and press out your seam. So just go ahead and press out your seam on both sides and the bottom. And you can finger press it or you can use your iron, either way. So we're just going to press that like that. And then on your bottom, you want to open that up as well and give that a press. I think I've burned off the tips of my fingers years ago. Okay, so once you've got your bottom ironed and your top ironed, to box your corners, all you have to do is turn it on its side, and you just take this side seam and line it up with the bottom seam. The corners of where you clipped should line up, and if they don't, just finagle it a little bit, and then go ahead and pin them. And we'll repeat that on both sides. So you just pin that right there. And then repeat that onto this side over here. So line up your two center seams here and pin those on the sides. Now, all we're going to do is sew across this seam. So you don't have to do I'll show you when I do this one. You don't have to do the cutout of it. You can just I can't really show it on this yet. You could just, match up your bottoms and then cut it off, which is the way some people do. I really prefer the boxing because I find I just get like a much cleaner result and it's a little bit more exact. So either way, you could do it if you wanted to box it or not. You could totally do it either way. And then we go back over to our machine. Now here, I like to do a smaller seam. So I'll do 1/4 of an inch, and the edge of your foot is will give you 1/4 of an inch. So go ahead and put your foot down, sink your needle, and go ahead. Oops. We'll get it in there first. Okay, so we'll get it in there and go ahead and start sewing. Now, if you wanted to, you could go back and forth at the beginning and the end, or the entire length of your piece if you wanted to, for just that extra stability there. Okay, so we're just going to go like that, and I'll trim that off there, and then we'll do the same thing on this side. And then while we're at your machine, grab your let's get this sewn, and then while you're at your machine, we want to go ahead and do the seam on the bottom of your, sorry, I'm thinking of, I had to back up there. We'll do the bottom of the seam on your pant leg as well, and that's going to be 1/2 inch to match the same seam we did here. Okay, so once you have that sewn, now if you hadn't boxed your corner, you would have to trim that off, but since we've boxed our corner, we are good to go. Nice little box corner there. Grab your, well, actually, don't do that yet. Hold on, let's come back over to my overhead screen here. And then I'm going to show you, because I'm doing, I've got my little jeans here, and they are stretchy. I promise you I would show you how to put the interfacing in there. So all I'm going to do is just kind of open my seam up, and I'll take a piece of interfacing and I'll put it on the inside of it. Now, the interfacing, as I mentioned, has a little bumps on one side, and that's the adhesive. And the only reason I'm doing this is because this is a stretch denim, the denim sort of pulls. So when I go to sew it, it might pull it a little bit on one side and make it a little, I don't know, I found working with the denim that has the stretch in it, it does tend to pull a little bit on one side. It's not a big deal. I think most of you will not have a problem with it, but if you have really stretchy denim, this is like your fix on how to keep it from, so see, it still has that stretch there, but when I come over here with that interfacing, the stretch is very minimal. That interfacing is going to hold it in place. So we just pop that right on there. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll just put a little interface on that. And again, you don't have to do it. It could be just a little piece of interfacing. Doesn't even have to go the whole way. It's just a little bit of stability for you. If you're new and you're like, oh, I want it to move on me, then you could do that. But it's, again, you don't have to. I didn't do it, but I thought I'd give you guys the option. Okay, so once we've done that, then all we're going to do is figure out where you want your seams, like your side seams, to be. Do you want them to be on the side of your box, so you're going to stitch across the bottom like this, and then these will be on the side, or do you want them a little bit off center? So you want to go ahead, line your pant leg back up like that, so you have the bottoms of your pant leg, or the leg, lined up, and just go ahead and pin it. And we're just going to stitch right across the bottom of the pant leg. Okay, so I'm just going to step over and I'll stitch right across the bottom of the pant leg. And we're just doing this the same 1/2 inch as we did the other bottom. So we're just going to push that through. And just be careful you're not pulling on it or stretching it. Give it a little bit of support, but let the machine do the work. If you pull the top, that's what will give it that stretch. So I'm just going through the whole thing like that. Okay, really easy. Now, once you have this done, we can go back over to, I'll take us back over to our overhead camera, going back and forth. Sorry, guys. Now from here, since we don't have a specific side seam, go ahead and use your iron and really give a press on your side seam so you'll know how to match it up to do the boxing. If you didn't want to do the boxing using your squares, and I'm just using the same squares I used on my liner, what you would do then is line up your side seam with the bottom seam like that, and then stitch across. I really think the boxing is drawing the boxes. It just makes it so easy. It's like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you make it easier on yourself? Okay. So Julia, that's a good question. Do you need a special needle to sew with denim? The denim the part of the denim that we're sewing, I'm just using a universal needle. If you're sewing through seams and making seams, you would want to use a denim needle. And the denim needle just allows you, it's a little bit thicker, so allows you to go through your material a little bit easier. But where we're cutting on the denim and we're sewing on the denim for this project, you could just use your universal needle. And then there is special thread for denim. It's a little bit thicker thread, more like almost like an embroidery floss thread. So if you wanted to match your seams and your on the denim, then you would want to use some sort of specific denim thread, and it's usually that yellow color, and it's the thicker thread. And I think it's like 100% cotton thread. So like if you're sewing denim jeans, you want that thicker thread. But for our projects, your everyday thread will be fine. So then we're just going to do the same process. Line up your seams again. So this center seam is going to line up with that fold that you made there. And it's okay if it comes up a little bit up here, that's okay, because you have your the way that your fabric is, when you press it open, it may pop up a little bit on the sides, and that's okay. So we're just going to take that seam I made there, where I pressed it, line that back up, and make sure everything lines up nice and smooth. You want your corners to match up on your box. So you're going to match those up. Line that up and match this up. If your corners aren't matching up, just kind of keep working with it until you get them to line up. They should line up pretty easily for you. But if they don't, I noticed on the denim a little bit, I think it's, again, because a little bit of that stretch goes in there, you have to just kind of finagle it just a smidge. And if it's a little bit over or under, that's okay. You're going to sew about 1/4 of an inch, so you'll be fine. Okay, so I've got that lines up nicely. And then I'll do the same thing over on this side. Line out my corners under here and line this up. So good question. I use both pins and clips. I don't think one is better than the other. I think it just is what you're comfortable with. I kind of like pins a little bit, especially if I'm going through like thicker material. I kind of like the pins a little bit better. Things don't wiggle on me when I use the pins. And they don't wiggle when I use the alligator clips. I think it's just I'm old school a little bit in using my pins. Kind of what I grew up using, so I'm more comfortable using the pins. Okay, so once you've got this pinned all or clipped, either way. Also, one thing, if you're using the clips do have a flat side and a round side. So I always try and pin it so that the flat side is facing down on the machine, and I can just remove it that way. Okay, so we'll go back over to our machine. And if you remember, on our side pieces, we use the edge of our presser foot to get our measurement. So we had about 1/4 of an inch seam. So you want to go ahead and go through all the layers. Now, here you do have a little bit of bulk in your layer. So you're just gonna, like, you may have to get your, have your fingers close by. Don't get them in the needle. You can always use your seam ripper if you need to go back and forth. And you may want to, I'm just gonna try and do my reverse. There we go. So I tend to use I'm horrible. I use whatever. So the question is, do you use a specific marker that can show on fabric that won't show on the fabric product? If I'm cutting something where it's on the inside of my garment, I just use whatever pen I have on hand. If I am tracing a pattern and I want to make sure that it doesn't show, I will use a water soluble pen. And in the notions aisle, you'll find a variety of water soluble pens. I'll see if I have one handy. And there is a brand, I think it's a Bic, has a water soluble pen that a lot of people like for sewing. I'm using just a marker so that you guys can see my lines, because sometimes your water soluble pens are a little bit lighter, so it's a little bit harder to see. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so let me go ahead and trim this out. Now, you guys, who boxed our corners, we didn't turn our lining piece around because we didn't need to. Our liner's going to stay inside out. So we don't need to do anything else. I sometimes, if you have like an embroidery hook, not embroidery hook, if you have like a crochet hook, that's always good to push out the corners, or a larger needle. A knitting needle is easy to push out the corners. But there we go. So now my corners are all boxed out. See, I've got my box, and it's got, the base of it is a box. Now, if you wanted to make sure that it's going to stand up, you could cut a little out of, like, a cereal box or something, cut a little square to put in the bottom. If you wanted to, you could make like a little bean bag to put in the bottom so it's not going to wobble on you. You could have also done a very strong interfacing. I tend not to do that because I kind of like these like this, a little wobbly. And then we'll just take our lining, and you're going to line up on your box side. So our box sides go like this, and we're just going to tuck our box into our bag here. And then you just fold over the top. Now, this is great too. If you do these for seasonal projects, you can change out your lining without having to change out your bottom. There we go. So you can just fold that over like that. If you want to tack it, the lining onto your pocket, you could, onto your jeans here, you could certainly do that. You could also sew like a button onto the front of it if you wanted to make it more, more sturdy. And then if you wanted to, you could always use it for like a koozie, a can koozie, or you can put your sewing supplies in it if you wanted to. You could add, you could certainly add pockets on the front of it, other embellishments if you wanted to on the front of it, anything like that you could put on the front of that. Now, while you guys are finishing up your project, we just have a few more minutes, so I want to give everybody a chance to finish up the project, ask any questions you may have. We've got a great one. Can you make bigger baskets by sewing the pant legs together? Absolutely. Like, these are some men's jeans, so the bottoms are much bigger. But if I wanted to, I could open these up and use these as two sides. And that's really what I did for my zipper bags. I opened those up along the leg. I guess it really varied. Let me just grab another one of those. It really varied how I did it. Like, this is a side seam on this bag, and this bag I boxed the corners, as I mentioned, on this bag. So these are boxed. which is fun. But let me show you how I've got a pair of my jeans here that I started. If we go back to the overhead camera, I just want to show you all how I did the little banner because that was really a fun project. So I got this nice seam on this leg here, and I'm just going to kind of lay this out. I can press it a little bit if I want to. I'll put the seam along a straight edge. So it could, if you don't have a straight edge, if you don't have something to work on like this, you could just make sure, put down a piece of tape or something and make sure that that's on a straight edge. Then I used my ruler. Now this ruler is kind of cool, and you can get, they have different rulers like this. It has a 30-degree angle, a 45-degree angle, and a 60-degree angle. For my banner, I use the 30-degree angle, and all you do is you take that angle and you line it up on the pant, on the seam of the pant, and that will give you your first cut. Is that right? I'm second guessing myself. Did I do 30 degrees? I'm pretty sure I did. Let me grab my banner, make sure, because I don't know, maybe have a few extra pieces here. So let me make sure that I did that right. Got my straight edge there, and here we go. You're going to put the straight edge along the banner. See that 30-degree line there? So if I change it, I do this. There we go. I guess I used the 60-degree angle. I'm so sorry. I used that 60-degree line. So as you can see, can you see on this ruler? You've got a 60-degree, a 45-degree, and a 30-degree. I used the 60-degree. I was confused there. So I just put my 60-degree along that pant seam, put that line straight there, and that gave me my first line to cut. So I just cut that like that. And you can use somebody asked about like what you can use to mark. You could also use chalk. I've grabbed my kids' chalk and I've used that. Then you just flip your ruler and you can decide how big you want your flags to be. I made mine 5 inches across. So I come over to this 5-inch point, put my 60-degree line along that line again. And then I can cut my band. Let me just make sure a little bit more. There we go. So I'm just going to line that right up and I'm going to go at an angle. Now, once I've done this across my leg, I can, once you get one cut, you can just take that one and use that across your other parts of your leg. Put that out of the way. So I can just keep moving myself across the pant leg and I can come down and go like this and cut this at that same angle and make my cut right there. So if I just line that up, then I can cut across that way. And I know it looks off right now, but I line those points up. So my most of my finished ones had a seam, the jean seam at the top. Okay, so I'm just going to go like this, and you just work your way up the entire leg of the pants, cutting from one angle to the next. You just get that one up there, and I'm just going to cut that one straight across. The same thing, and then I can pretty much, I think it's better if you keep using your ruler, especially when you get up here, because then your seams kind of stay the same. Otherwise, they can get too big. As you can see, we can just come right back here and trim this one a little bit. So this is how I made my pennant pattern. Can I get one more? And then, so you use the bottom of your pant for your little tote bag. You've used the top of your legs for your pennant. You can use the waistband part for your bag, your tote bag if you want. That. And then all I did was I took this over to my machine, leaving a channel at the top. I just sewed in the triangle shape. So once I had it into the triangle shape, I'm just going to sew down, 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 and then I'll come back and clean up any of these edges. So let me look at your questions and let me go over to my machine. What is the biggest size basket you can make? You can make any size that you want. Like, you're only limited by the size of your material. So again, remember, the bigger the basket you're making, your squares, you'll want to make your squares bigger on the bottom. So if you're going to make like a really big basket, your squares may end up being about 3 inches or so. So the zipper bags, Kathy, we do have, I think Singer just did a video or did a class like 2 weeks ago about the zipper bags or zippers, sewing in zippers. On the Michael's YouTube channel, they do have that, but I'm glad to know that that's what you would like to learn, because I can always, maybe we'll do a class on that in the summer with the zipper bags. I love doing zippers. Zippers, they seem like they're a challenge, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be putting in zippers in everything. They're super, super easy to do. I'm just pulling up my bottom thread here as I go. Are there any last questions we have before we end for the day? Oops. Put that there. All right. So Felicia, do you mind jumping back to the front camera? Awesome. I would love to see what you guys make if you tag Michael's if you post on Instagram and you want to tag learnwithmichaels.com. That would be awesome. We do have some other fun classes coming up this month. One is using your digital cutter to make your Mother's Day card. I think this one is on Thursday night. And then we have using a Glowforge Aura to make cake toppers, if you haven't done that yet. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I really would love to see what you make. So please, my Instagram is kesley.365. Thanks a bunch.